Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen.
And I'm John Johnson.
And you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, comics we want to read, and everything in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey everybody, it's Matt here. I was just letting you know we had a little technical difficulty with the audio in this one. So hopefully it's not too distracting. You all enjoy the episode just fine. We do have some new mics and recording equipment after this one. So hopefully everything improves and you all enjoy it just as much. Thanks. Bye. All right. Welcome back. This week we read the comic book Torso by Brian Michael Bendis and Mark and Draco. What do you think of that, John?
Initial reaction, I was pretty fantastic. Was one of the best true crime things I've seen in a while, and it was cool to see it in a print form to have that comic aspect mixed in with some real world stuff.
So let me give some backstory on this. It's an Image book put out by Image, and I guess Bendis did a bunch of crime comics. One of them's called Goldfish. One of them's called Jinx, and one of them's called Torso. And Torso is among the... I don't know if they're all true crime, but Torso is based on true crime of a murder or a bunch of murders that happened in the 20s in Cleveland. That's what it is. See, I read it.
It's because he's from Chicago and they mentioned it.
Yes, yeah. So we'll get into it, but this is based on it. It's not a 100% true story. Which John told me, actually. Do you want to go into that? Or you read a bit about it?
Oh, yeah, it was cool. So the background on the story, it's kind of touches on the Jack the Ripper feel. It has that same kind of basis. Like, that's who the feeling of these true crimes felt upon. It's very reminiscent of Jack the Ripper. And
like what, women getting murdered?
It seems like women or people who are not in the best circumstances in life. Like that's
right, because it wasn't just murder. There was the homeless people.
Yeah.
That got killed too. So
it's that aspect of it, along with they also coined it to the Black Dahlia murders, how that went unsolved, and so there was a connection to this. They've actually. These type of things these crimes in this book they were happening, they actually thought at one point were connected, but they later determined that it had to be different people. So
yeah, and that was one of the reasons last time we did Batman Hush, and that's a cool book and it's a fun comic, but on this series I wanted to do more than just superhero stuff and even more than just Torso as well, but. This I thought was good, to set the tone of the podcast. The second episode would be some kind of under the radar book, even though it's by a really well known creator. I think Brian Michael Bendis he created Miles Morales from the new Spider-Man movie, Into the Spider-Verse. He's one of the best writers. He did one of the best Daredevil runs.
Did he work on Civil War?
I don't think he did Civil War.
He didn't do any Civil War?
No, I don't think he did Civil War. I can't remember who wrote it. I think that was Mark Millar who did Civil War.
See, and that's my comic book background is a lot of superhero stuff, which not even obviously.
Well, he did Powers. That was his
Powers
own separate universe through Image. Was it Image or Icon? It was both Image and Icon. He did it was 30 volumes or something of Powers, and then we'll read that for sure because that's a really good comic book as well. This one it's cool because it's true crime, which is always interesting to me. But whenever stuff like this, real things happen in graphic novels, it always makes me it hits harder for something because it's comics are for fun stuff or whatever, and then you read something about the Holocaust or about this, and you're like, whoa, this is a real fucked up thing. That's crazy. If you read Nat Turner or something by Kyle Baker, you're like, oh my, this is people being killed on the page. That's interesting. And it's not Thor's going to come back after this issue. He got killed in quotation marks.
Yeah.
So this one was one of those. I guess we'll go through the story. So the story of Torso is There's a bunch of murders that happen in Cleveland. Serial killer.
They don't know they're connected yet at the beginning.
Yeah, they don't know, as much like everything back in the day. They didn't have, connected agencies and areas of the Cleveland police that are talking to each other and whatnot. But the main protagonist in this book is Eliot Ness. You may know from the movie The Untouchables, and he was like a big government agent. I don't know if he was like the original ATF.
I guess
because he busted people who had alcohol in the 20s. So that was like his big thing. And then he went after Al Capone, and that was like his big thing was he got Al Capone on, I guess they got him on racketeering charges.
Yeah, it was on tax stuff, not on.
Yeah, it wasn't on murdering people, but yeah.
It was a win, but not not exactly what he was going for.
Right. So I guess that this novel and in the real world also took place after his fame with all the Al Capone stuff. And then he went to Cleveland to clean the town up because I guess the cops were pretty shady and corrupt in that town. And then just right when he gets there to do that, they start finding bodies everywhere. And of course he's like, I'm gonna find this guy. And they didn't even have any forensic stuff back then. I mean, I think I read one book that talks about the origin of forensic science, and it started in like 1898 or like it was pretty new in this time, and it definitely wasn't over here at this time either. So, but yeah. So, what do you think was unique about this book? Besides, obviously it's different because it's true crime, it's not superhero. But what do you think? What do you think about the paneling and stuff, or like the art? Because just for reference for the reader or the listener, the art is like half realistic, like they actually took crime scene photos or photos from the newspapers or the city back then, and then drew people over it. And they also had photos of the actual detectives and whatnot that were in it, and they would draw them kind of realistically over the scenes. So what do you think about that?
I loved it. The noir feel of it. It's all in black and white, and so that really helps set the tone of being dark, gritty, and like these are disgusting things going on, and we don't really know, we can't really see what's going to come from it, and that darkness of it was really nice to keep in. And it was cool to interweave those pictures, because they're all black and white from that time too, with that. So it kind of kept you into that realism of it.
Yeah, like when it shows actual crime scene photos or like coroner's photos of the bodies and everything, and then there's a drawing of a detective standing there like, oh, what is this? Like that was creepy to me that they actually had real photos of skulls or the death mask of one of the people,
or body parts.
So you read, and I didn't read it. When I read it, I thought, oh, this is all true. But you read that the ending of this book is made up.
Yes.
So what actually happened? You said there was, or in the book. So in the book, let me just explain. The Eliot Ness is getting taunted by the killer, and more bodies keep showing up. And there comes a point where they have a clue, and it leads to a first, it leads to a obvious suspect, and then that turns out to be right, and then the suspect is some nephew or
senator's nephew, I believe.
Okay, it's like a senator's nephew, so he's like untouchable in the fact that like they can't arrest him because he's the senator's son, so like the senator's protecting him or his nephew. But that didn't actually happen. So what did you read online about it?
What I read into it was that they actually never had a person of interest. It really was a cold case. Like it just went cold. They never
been solved.
Nope, never been solved. They never had a serious suspect. So
I guess that means because throughout the book there's 3 detectives. There's Eliot Ness.
And he's kind of, at least to me, I don't mean it.
No, you're good.
The beginning of the story, Eliot Ness comes in to clean up the town. This starts happening, but he's not as focused on it yet until he starts getting the postcards that are starting to become a little more, we'll say, threatening. It's the other 2 detectives that are really following it.
See, I wonder if he actually got the postcards then too, because at the end of the book, he's got a whole desk full of postcards from the guy.
Yeah.
Still taunting him even after the fact, because at the end of this book, the guy doesn't go to jail. He actually goes to like a sanitarium or whatever, right?
Yeah, he checks himself in. There's the lawyer for the lawyer that is for the senator becomes the lawyer for the nephew, and they write him like either maybe he's in person. He says, "Oh, I'm so thankful that you brought this and like we're able to help find who he was, because that made him realize that maybe he's going crazy
he
needs help.
Yeah, maybe he's going crazy. He's murdering
Such
people
a cop
and cutting their
out.
heads off. Yeah, and so so in the book he keeps getting postcards after that from the killer that he was like the same ones that he was getting when everything was happening. So assuming the guy can mail from the sanitarium or wherever where he's at, the crazy people home.
Ness didn't really get involved until his wife was threatened, because he was at a party.
Oh, that's right.
And
he found the postcard.
He found a postcard in his wife's coat.
Right.
So it means that he was at that party. I wonder if
that actually that happened in real life?
I didn't see anything on that specifically.
We never saw a postcard, like a real shot of a postcard in this book. It was always like a drawn one. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine if it was real, they would have thrown that in, like the evidence or whatever.
Yeah, I don't recall.
I don't know, though, because it doesn't say it in the book. So we don't know what's real as far as... We know some things are real. Obviously, there was a murder and whatnot. But what do you think about that whole, like, a lot of the book is... Because you think about it, there's, like, two things. The postcards that you can't... See, obviously, they didn't happen or they happened differently. Like, so the postcards are one, and then the murder of the other detective. One of the detectives at the end of the book... does he go ahead of time? I got a little fuzzy on what was going on in some of at the ending of the book. Like,
so the two main detectives they're following, it's Simon and
Milo.
Milo,
something like that.
So they're been detectives together for some time, so they're kind of like buddies. But Mylar kind of rubbed Simon the wrong way a couple times.
What is
it? And that makes sure we're getting this right.
It's Milo. Walter Meyerlo. And Detective Sam Simon.
So Meyerlo, there's some interwoven stories that gives them a little bit of more character build. They've been working together for a long time. They've seen the corruption. They've seen Ness come in and kind of wipe that slate clean.
And apparently they were the only two like clean cops.
Basically.
They made it seem like he fired the entire police force, and then like these two guys were like, well, it's pretty quiet today or whatever, like in this police station. So and then he puts them on this case, right?
No, they were already because they found some of the first bodies, and some of the interesting things behind it were their backstory as far as they've been together for a long time. But there's an underlying that Marlowe kind of rubbed Simon the wrong way several times, and we learn as it goes on that's because of the time period that they're in. Simon is also gay.
I was going to ask, what do you think about that? Did that feel like smooth to you in this?
I mean, I feel like they hinted at it, and I didn't really like.
Did it feel realistic? See, I don't know if that's real, like if that was actually a thing, or if he added that.
I feel like in the story wise, it felt like it could have been real, but it didn't feel like Marlowe's response to it was real. That felt more like a nowadays kind of
right, because it's in the 20s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see, I guess, if it's your best friend or something, but even then, in the 20s, I wouldn't imagine people would still be okay with the reveal that, oh, I'm gay.
Because even though it seemed like they're friends and they've known each other a long time,
they're partners though. It's not like they're
they're partners. Because every time, the main thing I saw that kept going to is that every time he invited Simon over to their house, he always declined. So it really seemed like he had a separation.
Yeah, there was a barrier. We haven't got past eating dinner at your house.
So yeah, him revealing that, oh, I don't appreciate the racial or the gay slurs that you throw out about the people and things that we see because I'm gay, and then him being like, oh, you're gay. All right,
yeah.
And moving on. That did seem a little off.
Yeah, to me it felt. Now I don't remember at the time. I didn't think I thought it was weird when I first read this, but it might be now because we're so because of all the controversy and everything with anything like that in the comic book is them trying to force this down our throat or whatever, and I'm like, it's fine, just have gay characters and whatnot.
Yeah.
That back then it might have just felt like, oh, that was something they added in this and it was fine. but now I see it. Like, it's like if you watch, trying to think, like The Fresh Prince or something, and then, or like Family Matters, and then there's like an episode about race. Maybe at the time it would have been like, oh yeah, this is a good episode. But then if you watch it now, it might feel more poignant or something. Like it might stand out more. I don't know. But yeah, this felt like that a little bit to me, where it was like, this is kind of out of nowhere, but whatever, it's fine. But then I'm worried because, like, okay, so those are two characters in the book. They kill the gay one. He gets his head cut off at the end by the bad guy. Mm-hmm. So,
spoiler.
Yeah, spoils. So, was he actually a detective in the force for real? Was he actually gay? Did he actually die? These are things I don't know because it's all made up, kind of. So, or parts of it at the end are made up. And that was one of the things I threw in at the end was that, he's gay. So, yeah, that was interesting to me. At once you told me that, some of the stuff's made up. I'm like, oh, wait, what stuff's made up? Because there's some kind of big points that happen, and then you're like, oh, did it actually happen like that or not? So, what'd you think about the art?
I like the art. Like you said, I like it gave it a real realism, despite there being real elements to it. Right. I mean, like, I was very much sucked into the story. I felt like I was in this time setting for real.
Yes.
The only things that really, and it was cool because some pages you have a lot of dialogue, and it was nice to have the dialogue in, like, it seemed like a string of bubbles.
Well, thank God it did that, because if there was just bubbles by themselves, single bubbles that are floating around everywhere, you wouldn't know where to read. So, I mean, Bendis does that on purpose. In every comic I've ever seen, he'll have the 40 bubble page, and luckily they're connected, so I'm supposed to read it like up and down, or like a Y, or like a W, or whatever he wants you to read it as. Because if not, you'd be like lost.
Yeah.
And that's Bendis, so if you're okay with that, then that's fine. If not, you gotta get used to it, I guess. Get used to it in Powers, right? Because in Powers, it happens a lot. So.
The only thing in this one that threw me off the first... Well, you know what? I never got used to it. I was going to say, threw me off the first time. It threw me off every time. There are several times where they're throwing a twist in the story, quote unquote, and then the page you literally have to twist to start reading it. You have to start turning the page clockwise.
The whole book.
The whole entire book to read it, to keep along with what they're saying. Or you have to, the page will flip to where you're reading it horizontally, then you have to read it vertically. And that was interesting, some of the back and forth with that. I don't know.
Well, you also got to think these were issues originally. So, in a comic book, that's not a big deal. Yeah. You can flip it sideways. In a thicker book, especially with the glue spine, you don't want to like bend the spine completely open and everything. That's an issue in Powers, especially on the hardcovers, because it's so thick, and then you bend it, and you can only bend it a certain point, and then the dialogue bubbles are like in the middle crease, and you're like, what the fuck is it saying? So.
Well, and that's the only thing. There's one or two of those situations where I feel like, it was useful and added, like when they confront the guy and they're talking with him about being the killer. He thinks he's the killer. And then he's like, I don't know about that. But then he goes into his, like, if I was the killer, then this would have to be thing. And it makes it a spiral where it's spiraling into, this guy's obviously the killer. But then some of them, I didn't understand the reason for it. It didn't seem like it added to the story at all. Like one of them, I think, is when they first get there, he comes to Cleveland with his wife, and he promises his wife he's only there to clean up the...
This is Eliot Ness?
Yeah, Eliot Ness. He gets to the town. He promises his wife he's only there to clean up the town. He's not going to get sucked into some big chase again like he was with Al Capone. He's going to really settle down with her. And then obviously, as the story progresses, you have this murderer who is, who becomes a serial murderer. And so he becomes really involved. And then once it takes a turn to actually seemingly like threaten her life, he throws everything of himself into it. And unfortunately, another spoiler, that takes a toll. And there was one of the moments that actually gave me like because
like when his wife, he thought his wife was dead.
Yeah, he's going home and his wife's not there. And so he goes back and tells the police.
This is the 20s. Like, why would a woman be outside of the house without me knowing?
So he's waiting on. He sends an officer to tell him the moment his wife comes home, because he's worried that she's been taken or he's going to be the next victim. And then they find a body, and Ness thinks, oh God, this is it. And it's not. It's another body they found. And then it's like just a little bit later, his wife comes to, I think she goes to the office where he is.
Oh yeah, because he finds the secretary, right?
Yeah. It's a moment of like, oh goodness, like you can take a breath as the reader. She's not dead. But then literally 30 seconds later in the reading, she also is going to leave him because she can't take how much he gets involved in it anymore. She needs more.
Yeah, also, was that real? Is that why she left him? Because of his murder? It kind of seemed like it happened fast, where she's like, it's either me or the crime thing. It's like, but you know,
choose the life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for the time too, because that's also the time period where it was like, stand by your man, so
yeah, and
no matter
also,
what,
like divorce wasn't really looked upon well, so it just seemed like it happened really fast in the comic, like out of nowhere. Like it was 3 issues, everything's fine. Then the 4th issue, for some reason, she was upset.
She's out of here.
She's out of here. She left him. So yeah, there was some of that. For me, the art. I already knew what to expect because I'd already read it before, and I read a lot of Bendis stuff. So I was like, okay, a lot of word balloons, I know that, and a lot of weird like puzzles or like not puzzles, but they got to turn the book while you're reading and whatnot. And then there was something I found interesting this time because I remember reading this and being like, wow, the art's really cool. There were some pages that looked really good, and then some of them looked really bad. Like a lot of it was his secretary. He would do really normal like faces and like motions and movements, but then sometimes it would be really ugly and like, I guess I spent like 5 minutes on that one or something. So
yeah, like some of the scenes, like the faces are super detailed. That's true.
Yeah,
and like the shadowing, you can tell like where they're standing, what they're doing.
I don't know. Yeah, like that's super detailed, and then this guy, not so much detail. His lips change, and then that one was kind of weird. So there's definitely some like art inconsistencies, and I like this artist. He did a book for DC called Manhunter, which is kind of like a Nightwing character but female, and I think it's Manhunter. I think that's her name. Yeah, she had like a staff. She was like red. She's in a red suit, whereas Nightwing's in a blue suit. So, but the art in that was really really good, and that was one of the reasons I picked this book up too. Was I was like, oh, it's that same artist. But yeah, like some of it, I was like, wow, that was really cool, especially with the, if he did a really good job at like tracing the photo image or doing his own take of the photo image over an actual crime scene. I was like, oh, that looks really good. And then sometimes I'd be like, what the hell? Like, why does he look like that? I can't understand why. There was like a lot of indiscrepancies in the quality, and sometimes that made it so I'm like, I don't know who's talking. Like I can't tell if this is Simon or if this is the other guy or who am I listening to right now? I don't know.
I'll give you that. When it was Ness, I was very understanding and focused with the story.
Right.
And when it was the 2 cops, because they're also like one has a longer face and one has a fatter face.
Yeah. And
that's about the description I can give you of them.
Yeah. They both wear hats. They both wear trench coats. They both wear a tie and a suit because it's the 20s. So other than that, yeah, and you see the pictures at the end. They have the actual pictures of the people, and Eliot Ness looks pretty spot on to what he drew. But then Meyerloh looks just like him, but there's no Simon, I don't think, in this book, right? I think Simon was an added character because there's Meyerloh, but there's no. They don't show Simon. You'd think they'd show Simon if he was there. So that he might be an added character just for drama because he's gonna have. And they also have the coroner in it, that dude. So they have people in it that are, and real events that they actually put in the comic. So I think they must have added that second cop, Simon, to be the story. To be like someone's got to die or whatever in the end of this thing to make it peak.
Yeah.
So it's got to be my made up detective that's a helper for Meyerloh. But I thought the art was good and really good in some places and kind of faltered in others, and sometimes that made it hard to tell who was who and what's going on and who's talking now. But overall, it was pretty good. I mean, I already knew that some of the panel layouts were going to be weird or twisting. You're going to run into that with the Swamp Thing run that we're going to do, the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. There's a lot of twisty turny. You gotta flip the book sideways to read it, kind of thing. Now, I came into an interesting issue or problem with this book because I read the digital copy from Comixology and John read my hard copy of it. So he just, when he got to those weird pages, was like, "Oh, I'll just flip the book sideways or whatnot." Whereas with me, in the digital version of any comic, you can double tap on the page, the comic book page, and it will zoom in to the word balloons and the panels it's supposed to be on. And then you can just click forward like you would the page, but it just goes to the next panel and the next panel. In any normal comic book story, this follows you perfectly, so you don't have to know where you're supposed to look. It just follows the story on the page, and you get all the reading points correctly and everything. Whatever version they had of this book, someone did not take the time to go like, "Oh, this is a weird format one." And I've read the Swamp Thing one, which does do the weird stuff on there, and they did that one fine. So they would do like a zoom out of the whole page, so you saw, oh, it's all fucking weird. And then the next time you went to the next page, you would zoom into one word balloon and then go to the next one in the correct order. So whoever did this for Comixology did not follow the order, because there's a couple pages that have maybe 40 word balloons on them, and some of them are in a line together, like they're tagged, the tails are attached, and some of them the tails are not attached, and it just read left to right. It was like, "Hey, what's going on over there? I got a specific part of hell for you, buddy," or whatever. And then, "What do you mean, what's going on over there?" And then it was like, "Wait, what? What's going on? I can't tell." So that might have been some of my confusion as well on some of those, because I didn't realize it until a little bit into the pages sometimes that was going on. So yeah, the digital version is a little messed up on this one. So if you're gonna read it, it was a lot easier just to pull out, so you could just see the whole page and just read the whole page in smaller print. But
be careful.
Yeah, be careful with the digital one. And the digital one costs, let's see, this one costs $25, the hardcover. The digital one costs $17.99 or something. So it's a little bit cheaper, but they had a bunch of issues with how you read it. So I don't know, it's better. Personally, I like the hardcover, or the trade paperback of it. So yeah, but I think that pretty much covers it. What would you give this one out of like a 10 out of our grading scale, right? So we had Batman Hush was a 5 for story and art and stuff, all of it together. What would you rate this one? Just completely different style.
Yes. Well, one of the things I wanted to mention, one thing about, there was a part I was trying to remember that I really actually enjoyed, and now I'm blanking. Overall, I really did enjoy it. Like I said, coming from my background in comics, which is a lot of superhero, and not as venturing out, this was a very, I don't want to say fun read to say about a true crime.
No, it was a fun read,
but I really did enjoy it, and I guess I have a little bit of background that watching all the type of shows with my dad when I was young.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, you want to watch a show? Yeah, let's watch this true crime thing.
Yeah. Forensic Files.
Yeah, Dr. G. But no, it was good. I really liked it, and I don't think the art. I don't think I noticed the inconsistencies.
I noticed it because I read
much.
it specifically like harder this time because we're talking about it on this podcast. So I was like, what am I going to talk about this art? Is it flawless? I did the same thing with Hush, because I'm like, I love Jim Lee, but like, let's see if I can analyze it a little bit more than just, I like Jim Lee. I like Mark Andreyko. So
that's good. We give good perspectives.
Yeah.
But so overall, I would say the only thing that really took me out of it from being as compelling as I thought it was and being into it was some of the unnecessary flips.
Okay.
So, I mean, and now going forward, now I know that about Bendis, maybe they won't be as bothersome. But for my first one, that was the only thing I would say, like, maybe I had to stop and be like, why did this happen?
How am I supposed to read it?
I guess I will turn the page.
What's funny is I've read this multiple times now, maybe 4 or 5 times, and I never once put together that when there's a twist in the story, you had to twist the book. So that was cool that you said that. I'm like, I got to reread that part and see when it is. So I liked this book. So what would you give it? You didn't rate it?
I didn't rate it. 7.
A 7? Solid 7?
Solid 7. Because I would definitely read it again. I like the story.
And you would recommend it to people. Like,
definitely.
This is a really good comic.
Yeah, if that is your thing, like if I had friends that were not quite into comics, but then like that kind of thing, like, well, here's a cool, like.
That's what I did with my wife, Mel. I was like, oh, you got to read comics. And she's like, I don't really read comics. I'm like, well, you like true crime, so like you should read Torso. She's like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'm like, it's based on a true story. And, that was the other thing in the book is they talk in 20s lingo a bit. So sometimes you're like, what are you talking about? But then you can pick up what they're saying, but
yeah, there were some fun phrases.
Yeah, she was like, I had to stop halfway through it because there was one section where they were talking about cabbage, and I was like, what are they talking about? And they were talking about money because they used to call money cabbage, I guess, or something. They're like, it's not all the cabbage I want. It's like, why do they get paid in cabbage? Like, is this the Depression or what's going on here? But yeah, there was a couple weird lingo choices, but when I reread it this time, not as many as I remembered or thought there was. So, but she specifically got held up by that a little bit. But other than that, it's a pretty good book to recommend to people who aren't necessarily comic book readers and don't care about superheroes or what. They're not going to read some Green Lantern story in the middle of the 90s run or something. So you give it a 7.
Yeah, solid 7. I would definitely recommend it.
I'd give it a 7 as well. Because like I said, it's a great book it stands up. It really defines the medium as far as like, this is a comic. And it can be different than what you think a comic can be while still being what you think a comic can be. Like, even just you're having to flip the book around changes your perception of what a comic can be.
Definitely.
I gotta think sideways or whatever, or think of it differently than how I normally read my superhero comics, which goes straight down the page and Thor's hitting stuff with a hammer or whatever. And this is good for, or if someone's like, your mom wants to read comics, what are these comics about? You're like, hey, you like true crime, or you hear something different that you don't need any history of other than I know what Cleveland is and I know what a serial killer is. So, and it helps, it's cool if you know who Eliot Ness is, which I'm sure most people know who he is that are older than a certain age. So, at least people who've seen Untouchables, the movie. So, that'll come to mind. But yeah, for sure, this is like a perfect, like, introduction to the medium for someone, or just I want to branch out from superhero stuff. I've read Batman all my life. What else is there? This is a great one. Yeah, it also pushes the boundaries of what's possible in comics because it has true crime photos and it's not technically there's no like big splash pages or anything. If there was, actually the splash pages were all like a newspaper reprint of a photo.
Yeah. And
then they had like draw the guys on top of it or whatever. So it was kind of like an anti superhero comic in that way, that there was no big, special art pieces in it or anything. But for the most part, yeah, it's a great read. I know I was critical of the of the art, but I'm trying to look at these a little bit harsher than I would normally. So yeah, because when I first read this, I just overlooked the stuff. I'm like, oh, she looks kind of weird, but whatever. But in this, I'm like, nah, she looks weird, and it shouldn't be like that. So yeah, but a 7's a good solid, like, it's a good comic, and I would recommend it to anybody to read, and it stands out on its own. So I don't know if this one won any awards or anything. It says it was nominated for an International Horror Guild Award, and it won the 1999 Eisner Award for Comic Book Excellence. So there you go, award-winning book for the Eisners. So yeah, I think that's all for this week's Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. We'll see you later.
See you next time.
Bye.
Well, folks, hope you enjoyed that episode.
If you did and you'd like to follow us on social media, our Facebook is Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, and our Instagram is @Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, all one word.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more recommendations to add to your weekly pull list.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.